Well, hey folks, it's John with Ozarks Backroads with you today. Today we're back in the Ozarks Backroads World Headquarters garage. We've still got the Tiger up on the lift here. I thought I was done with it, but I've decided to do one more little project on it before I call it quits for the season. I'm going to go ahead and change the sprocket, the gear ratio on my sprockets here. I had geared this way up when I originally bought the bike. Immediately I geared it up. I went from a 16 tooth front sprocket to a 17 tooth, and the rear sprocket I went from a 50 down to a 47. Gave it a great highway gear, really gets down the highway good. A little rough in the off-road stuff. Well, I find myself spending more and more time out on the trail, on dirt roads, creeks, that sort of thing. Pretty rough ground. The high gear is really hard to get around with in those conditions, so I've decided to go back to from a 17 tooth front sprocket back to the 16. We're going to change our sprockets. We got to cut our old chain. We're going to put a new chain on here. If you need to know how to cut a chain or how to rivet a chain back, we're going to do that. I think I'll have to cut a link out of the new chain. It's going to be a link too long. So we'll change the sprockets and the chain on the Tiger. Stick around. I've got my new sprockets over here. I'm going to be using JT sprockets. I like JT. It's pretty much all I use. So I got a new set of JTs. I got a 16 tooth for the front, and I'm going to stick with the 47 for the back and just replace it with the new sprocket. And then I've got an RK racing chain. It's the GXW. That's what was actually, this is the same chain that came out on the bike. First thing I'm going to do is change my big sprocket here. So we'll get this started right now and change this first. We've got our old sprocket off. We got our new sprocket. These are JT sprockets. I'm not sure about other brands, but I think the style of sprocket here is going to be the same regardless of the brand, but they're going to be flat on the back. They're not going to have any dish areas in it. It's just going to be flat like this. And then if you look on the front, it's dished out here. It's cut down a little bit on all these spokes in here. On all the JT sprockets, the branding will be facing outside where you can see them when the sprocket's installed. So it's going to be where I can see it here. Same way on the front sprocket. This is rubber dampened. It's got rubber embedded on it, but it'll go on the bike where I can see the branding and the part number. So it'll go on just like that. So we'll get all these nuts on and we'll torque them up to 41 foot-pounds here on this rear sprocket. And then we'll be ready to mount our wheel up and see if we can get that front sprocket, the nut broke loose on it. I'm going to put just a little grease here on my spacers where the seals run so they won't be dry before I put them in back in the wheel here. All right, get our tire. This is the mount for the caliper. It's got a slot, and then there's a piece on the inside of the swing arm that this slides over. I'm going to slide it up into place before I get too carried away here. Put my spacers in both sides. I was careful not to get them mixed up because they're different. They're not the same for either side. I should be able to roll this into place here. Okay, that went through. I need to be sure and position my this piece here that the adjuster runs on. The pointed part has the flat spot that the bolt sits on here to adjust my axle. Run that forward, and then the axle goes in that in a slot. Do the same over here. Just start my nut, shove it all the way forward and see if I can get my chain back on the sprocket. And it did. We got our axle in. I ran my adjusters out and got my chain tight enough to do what we need to do. I'm gonna push these pads back up into place, spread them out, slip them over the disc here. But there's a notch back in this that they slide into. And I think I'm gonna put a little grease on these bolts here. They do slide on these pins. Calipers slide back and forth a little bit. See if we can get them going in here. All right, we'll get those tightened up. And then the other thing that we've got off here is our wheel speed sensor. It goes right here in this hole. So in my case here, my bolt will go through, there's a little bracket here, run it through my sensor, and then this washer goes behind it, and that spaces this, that pulls it out a little bit so my sensor doesn't hit the ring, the speed ring here on the wheel, the reluctor ring. All right, we'll tighten these up, and we'll be ready to see if we can bust our front bolt nut loose there on the front sprocket. Well, we've got our chain tightened up enough we can break this nut loose. So what I'm going to do here is get around on the other side of the bike. So I'm going to stand, basically I'm going to put my weight on the brake here with my right foot to hold the brake, and then see if I can break this loose. Oh. All right. Now this washer back here that locks this down had the edge of it was folded over the flat spot of the nut here when it was torqued up. Wherever this washer's folded out over the edge of the nut and tapped down against the nut to lock it, you have to peck that back out, get it off the nut, and then break the nut loose. That's what I've done. It was folded over right up here. Take a look at this washer that locks the nut in. See if it'll come out. It came out. But that's where it was bent down over the edge of the nut right here, and I took a screwdriver and drove it back. And then we'll fold it over. When we reinstall it, we'll fold that over the edge of the nut in a different spot. We can reuse that several times. We've got our sprocket nut off now, and our washer, our lock washer with the splines. Got that off, kind of straightened it up where it was folded down over the nut here. So we're going to reuse it. We'll reuse it up here on a part that has never been folded over. So I've went ahead and loosened off the adjusters on the back wheel. I got my chain slipped off the back sprocket. I'm going to go ahead and try to work this sprocket off of the shaft here. Oh yeah, it's going to come off. See if I can get it out of the chain. There we go. We've got our old sprocket off. We're going to put the new one on, our new 16 tooth. And I'm going to go ahead. I've cleaned all this up best I could, got the rust off of this shaft. Got all this looking really good. I'm going to put some high pressure grease in these splines. Give them a little bit of protection. They look real good. I don't see any wear at all on these splines. So I got some grease on there. Let's see if we can get our chain out here. Get our sprocket worked into the chain behind this hose. Here we go. And then there it goes. Kind of cleaned up the old washer here, so it goes over the splines and like that. And then our nut has a hollowed out side. This side here, you can see where it's cut down and hollowed out. This goes over the splines. That's what this little pocket is made for. Those splines come all the way through. They stick out just a little bit. This hollowed out portion of the nut allow those splines to fit in here, and then this outer ring on the nut clamps down against the washer and the sprocket and holds the sprocket tight. So the hollowed out portion goes towards the sprocket. I'm going to go ahead and put a little grease. We're back on the rear sprocket here. I went ahead and slipped my chain back on here just to hold it. And I'm going to grind off the ends of the pins here on one of these outer link right here, so I can take the link apart and take my chain apart. I'm just going to use a die grind or an angle grinder and grind these off. The easiest way to do this is to take a screwdriver, slip it behind the plate here, and give her a little love tap there, and it should just pop right off. And then these are the two seals, little O-ring seals. All right, now my pin will just slide right out the back, and my chain is cut now, so I can drop this off. So now what I'm going to do to install the new chain, rather than try to feed it up around here by hand, which on this bike's pretty simple, but there's another way we'll do it. You may have a bike that it's hard to get up in here to do that with. So we'll just hook our new chain onto the end of this one and pull it through and around. And if you have a bike that's you can't get into real good up here, that's a good way to do that. So we've got our new chain here. I've just set it down on the bench, and I'm going to start it on the sprocket here up against my old chain. And I'm going to take my my old link I pulled out when I cut the chain, and see if I can just run that through the old chain to the new chain here, put that link through from the back side. I should be able to just pull this through. This new chain's stiff, got all this wax on it. All right, here comes the new one. Got my new chain on, kind of pulled it back to take some of the slack out, and I'm going to have to cut out these links here. The chain's too long. I knew it would be when I ordered it, but I wanted to make sure I had enough chain. So I'll grind out this rivet and this rivet, or the head off of this pin and this pin, and remove these links, and that'll leave me the correct length. I've set my axle distance kind of in the center of the adjustment here, so we're going to be good. With this on, the whole chain on, I run out of adjustment before my chain gets tight, so I got no choice but to cut the chain. So we'll grind these off and get this chain the right length. I got those ground off. I put my old link back in here just so I could work on this without it jumping off on me. Let's see if we can get this to come off. There it goes. So here's the old link that I had off the old chain. I put that on there just to hold it together. There we go. So that link is now gone. There it goes. So that's going to be where we put the new chain, right there. And that should give me right in the middle of my adjuster. So I'm going to take my new link, and it's got two O-rings on the back side of it here. I want to make sure and get all my O-rings on it, so I got two there. I'm going to go ahead and grease my pins, and then slide this in from the back side. A little grease here on this side. Two more of these new O-rings on here. Then our plate, sometimes you have to push these on. They don't go on willingly. We'll see. So my installation tool, you can also use this to push on your outer plate. It's got this little piece here that you can use. Fits over the dimple, fits over the rivet head. It's got a groove in it. You can use this and screw it down and push the plate on over the pins. So we'll do that. All right. Let's see if that'll start on. Okay, got them pushed through to the face. So now I need to be sure and line them up good so that they come through in the slot in this tool. That'll allow these to push on through. You just have to eyeball that and take it off and check it and eyeball it. There, I think, yeah, they're coming through now. Need some more though. I can feel them. They're through enough, I can feel them in that groove. I know the groove's over the heads of the rivets. So I'm not pushing on the rivet heads. All right. Okay, we've got our plate and we got the heads of our our pins pushed through with our tool. And we just use this little attachment here to push the plate on, and this gives room for the heads of the rivet or the pins to come through that little channel there. So we've pushed that on. Now we need to kind of set how wide these links are, and the way I'm going to do that is just use a dial caliper, and I'm going to check these other links, and I'm going to see how wide it is between these outside plates. I'm just going to measure how wide apart they are. And that is about 610 thousandths. 612. 610. 610, so I'm going to say about 610 thousandths is where I want these two plates to be, how far apart I want them to be. Because I don't want to crush my O-rings. I want to keep them in good shape. So I'm going to measure that. I'm at 630. So I'm going to go ahead and take my tool that I pushed the plate on with. I'm going to put it back on here, and I'm going to push it just a little farther, and I want to try to get it to somewhere around 610, so they all kind of are the same. So I'm just going to give that a little, about that much. Pull it back off, and then measure this again. That's about 612, so I'm going to leave it there at 612. That's close enough. Now I'm going to put in my tool here. I take the plate out and I can put in my little pin here that does the actual crimping over of the end of the pins. It's kind of got a cone on it. That'll go in the ends, and then we'll crimp those over so that plate can't come back off. The back of the pins are going to be sitting on the plate here, so we're going to be pushing the pin against the end of the pin. So we're not pushing on the plates themselves, we're just pushing on the pins here. All right, I think I've got it on there. Give it a little twist here. Okay, that's flattened out pretty good there. I'm just going to check it and make sure I didn't push my... Nope, we're still good. If we can get the other one that way, I think we got it whooped. That is definitely not coming off. That last one, I kind of felt it get hard when it quit. When it kind of quit mushrooming and it got hard. Oh, and that one's pretty hard right there. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, that's mushroomed out real nice. Check my measurement again. I'm still good. The other thing I want to do, now that I've got them crimped on, is I want to give them a real good look and make sure that they didn't split. If you over crimp them, which these tools, if you use the right tool, it's really hard to over crimp them. Just kind of look around the edge of them here, and I don't see any splits there. I think we're all right. I've got my chain adjusted up where I want it. I use my Motion Pro tool here. This is my chain alignment or sprocket alignment tool. It lets me know if my rear sprocket is in line with my front sprocket. Basically, you just clamp it on the sprocket. It wraps around the chain and clamps onto the sprocket. And then you've got a sight bar on it right here, and you just get back here and you look up the side of the chain and align it with this. And if your rear sprocket isn't straight, you'll see that this sight bar will be running off one way or the other. And you just adjust the adjuster over here on the right side and turn it until it runs till the rear sprocket, this sight bar runs straight up the chain all the way to the top to the front sprocket up there, and then you know your sprockets are aligned properly. So we've got that done. We've got this torqued down. Now we've got to do our front sprocket here. We've got our, I set the bike back down where I can get up here and get my foot on the rear brake. So we're going to torque the nut up on the front sprocket now. I've got my torque wrench all set up here at 61 foot-pounds. I got my right foot on the rear brake. So I don't think this will be too difficult. 60 pounds, not very much. All right. Got everything torqued up now. I need to go ahead and lock this nut down on this front sprocket. And I'm going to do that with the washer here that's behind it, that's keyed onto the shaft so it can't turn. I'm on a spot that's never been used before, hadn't been folded down here. See if I can get behind it here the way I want it to. There we go. All right, we've got that going our way. Well, we've got our washer pinged over here, over this nut. It's not going anywhere. It's there until we take it back off the next time. Well, folks, that's pretty much all there is to changing the chain and sprockets on the Triumph Tiger 800 here. I appreciate you all hanging around and watching me do that. It's not real hard to do. Really, the chain tool, the crimping tool, is the only specialty tool you need. Everything else pretty standard fare. I invite you all to come back and see me. Till I catch up with you again, y'all take care of yourselves. We'll catch you next time.